So to start off a little bit about Best Practice Network and the Outstanding Leaders Partnership and who we are. So we've been a school-led CPD provider for the past 10 years, so since 2012, when we first started delivering NPQs. And over the past 3 years alone, we've delivered the NPQs to 14,000 participants all across, the UK initially, but also across the last 3 years, we've also offered these internationally and to every continent across the world. And we've had 1,500 participants go through the programs in that period, which has been really amazing. And I think at the last count, it was 78 different countries we've welcomed participants from, which is great. As well as the NPQs, we also deliver a range of other programs, predominantly in the UK, which includes the Early Career Framework, Early Years Initial Teacher Training, Higher Level Teacher Assistant Status, NASENCO, and alongside many other qualifications, some of which will become available to the international sector over the coming sort of 12 to 18 months. So really diversifying from the base of NPQs and looking to support the international sector with many other programs as well. In terms of our core values, on the left-hand side there, what we really believe across the group is inspiring learning, working collaboratively, both within Best Practice Network, but also with our network across the world, acting with integrity and following all the principles you'd expect, as an education provider, and then striving for excellence and really trying to make a difference for all those networks and all those schools and participants that we work with across the globe. So in terms of today, we're looking specifically at the Specialist NPQs, and I'm going to pass over to our lead international facilitator, Martin Nugent, to take it from there.
Thanks, Jamie. We'll talk about the Specialist NPQs, but first we'll talk about what's changed. So those of you who have previously looked at the NPQ programs, you'll notice that there's a very slight change, and that the middle leadership program has gone, and it's been replaced by 3 new NPQs. Those specialist NPQs are in lead teaching, lead teacher development, and leading behaviour and culture, which allows those middle leaders that are beginning just to branch off into those areas which are a little bit more specialised within the school's operations. So, and also within those programs, there used to be very, very large school projects, and that's slightly changed. So a lot of the work now is focused within their practice, within your school and within your school setting environment. Okay, if we just move on to the next slide. So who can enroll? So what are we looking for here? If we look at the lead teaching, it's for those who are about to lead or are beginning to aspire to lead in teaching a subject, a year group, and a key stage, or even a phase. So they really do offer a broad range of skills, all the way from early years through to secondary. And those would be for people who are aspiring to lead departments and begin to develop and have other members of staff in their department and responsibility for them. The NPQ for leading teacher development is really about those who are beginning to deliver CPD for other members of staff within your school. The NPQ for leading behaviour and culture are those who are really moving towards the pastoral role within school. So they will be helping to look at the culture and the environment within your school, and then actually moving on to looking at how to manage behaviour amongst groups of teachers who will then be leading that behaviour amongst the students in your setting. So as you can see, that the specialisation here is much stronger in terms of these specific areas. And one of the key aspects of these specialist programmes is it brings together those kind of middle leaders into a network. So they'll be able to share experience and their best practice as they develop and begin to become leaders in their role in those specialist places. If we move on from there. Okay, in terms of the programme, It's a 12-month program, and throughout that program, some of it is self-study, which goes through a learning development record, where they start to measure the elements of their practice against the NPQ statements. Those statements are qualified by the DFE, meaning that the candidates will also get that DFE accreditation. So this case study will be very specific to the framework in which they're studying. And then there'll be a group of summative assessment tasks after each cycle of the framework. And instead of what used to happen in NPQs, where you'd have to do rather a large study within the school, it's now changed to a summative assessment task, which is approximately 1,500 words. They're very relevant, these summative assessment tasks, and they're meant to aid further progression and the development within your specific setting for those candidates. As well as that, throughout the course, participants are expected to meet at least 90% of engagement throughout the course, and they will also have opportunities to meet in groups and with their learning mentors, and of course with an in-school professional development coach as well, to support them through the programme. So let's have a look at how it really works. And so if we'll just introduce Abby again, and find out what's been happening within her partnership.
Hello, welcome everyone. So you asked the question, Tom, at the beginning, where were we from? I'm from the UK, but I work in the UAE and across the Middle East, and I've called the Middle East my home for the last 9 years. Welcome everyone. I'm currently a Director of Learning for ISP Schools, so that's International Schools Partnership. We're a global group of schools group with over 60 schools internationally, 8 of which are in the Middle East. So why did we become a best practice partner? I think 3 words really. I think one, we wanted to work with a company that wanted to work in partnership with us. So really we wanted to have a company that was approachable, that we could talk to, that supported us in our development of our staff, but we could also support by delivering the courses. We wanted to partner with a delivery partner that we felt was of significantly high quality, and everything we'd seen from best practice, from the materials that we'd seen in the past, from the first contact, the emails, the response to emails, the communications, the quality was always really high. And we wanted something that would support our mission, which is to grow schools. And we go into partnership with schools. I apologise if there's a noise. I should have said I'm actually talking from the Louvre, Abu Dhabi. So I'm just in a little corner here. So I apologise if there's people milling around. So yeah, we wanted to partner with a company that we felt would really support our vision of growing great schools and really growing schools and growing teachers to be able to deliver what they need to deliver in their role in school as they become leaders. Do you want me to carry on, Martin?
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, lovely. Okay.
You know, in terms of what programs are you running at the moment, Abigail?
So we've early on. It's early days for us. We've decided to go in step by step. So our first programs we're running the lead teacher program in 3 locations: Abu Dhabi, Dubai, and Qatar. And we hope to introduce the NPQH and the NPQ Senko, or whatever it ends up being called, in the future. And then we will hopefully have a cycle where we offer these 2, then we'll offer the next 2. So we'll keep adding them every sort of 12 months or so as our staff develop. But what's been really fantastic for us is it's not just our staff. You know, I talk from ISP obviously, but actually what's been great for us is we didn't want to just have cohorts that were just ISP staff. We wanted cohorts that were a mixture of staff from other schools, so that our staff could network with each other and across the region, and they could also then collaborate with each other. And when we ran our face-to-face day, what was really fantastic is, you know, first thoughts were, I looked at it and I just thought, wow, what a huge slide deck. but actually the slide deck was broken down into bite-sized chunks, and each chunk had something that the students did. It was not chalk and talk from the front. It was content to be delivered. However, what was fantastic is as we delivered it, everyone benefited of being together and being, a cross school group. We had EYFS new leaders, we had secondary young leaders, all working together and sharing their stories, sharing their understanding, sharing their learning. And I think that was really beneficial, because it's quite an exciting model.
If it's okay for me to ask, what type of teachers have you put on the courses? Are they already in those kind of positions, or are they people you're hoping to move into them?
Okay, again, a real mixture. So we had a mixture of the teachers that showed potential, that really showed potential and interest in becoming, I will use the old term, becoming middle leaders or lead teachers, as they would be on our course. So those that showed potential, and really the moment there was a gap in the school, we felt, or the other schools that had put their teachers forward felt that they would be able to fill it. But we also had some that had taken on that role. So we've got a great maths teacher who's a secondary maths teacher, and he's not an ISP member staff, but we talked, what was great on the face-to-face was we got to know the students, or the participants rather, and he's been given the role of leading maths in the primary school. So he's already a middle leader, and he's going to need loads and loads of leadership skills to deliver that position, or deliver the KPIs of that position effectively, because he's very much fish out of water, going into the primary as a secondary maths teacher, but going in as that leader is a really exciting opportunity for him.
I mean, for me, that's a really, really nice thing to hear from an international provider, and particularly in terms of, there's a high level of focus in the NPQs on ethical leadership. And I think that really demonstrates the idea that all children are valuable, whether they're at your school or in a partnership school or in a partner school. And I think that's really nice. One of the things that I'd like to ask you as well is, for those that are in those positions and they're taking them NPQs, where are you expecting to push them on to? Have you got expectations on them?
Oh, sorry, one moment. So where are we expecting? Well, I suppose we're looking,
what do you want from them, Abby?
Okay, from within ISP, what we want them to be really fantastic at their jobs. We want them to be excited about their next position, and we'd love it if they stay in ISP and look globally at their next position, and being a global company. Who's to say that my middle leaders in Dubai don't go over to Vietnam and take up, a more senior role, or go and, take up a second middle leadership position with a view of moving quickly into senior leadership. So I just want them to be best placed for the next step, whatever that looks like.
Yeah. I mean, I really see strength in the NPQs in terms of being an 18-month course. It would, for me as a principal, I would hope that it would help me to capture those strong middle leaders, get them on the course and keep them within my school, because we know that retention is difficult internationally, because people do like to travel, and it's wonderful to get the experience of travel from international teachers really benefits the school, but also a little bit of sustained development within the school means that you can perhaps help to retain those teachers longer, and also at the same time benefit your school and hopefully their career for their next steps in the future.
Yeah, and what seemed for the middle leaders in the group that I was facilitating in Dubai, that a lot of them seemed to have gone into their first leadership positions, and they were really quite out of their comfort zones. Like that maths teacher I said, I had another one who was going in and they suddenly had to rewrite a curriculum in a part of a school that they weren't experienced in. I had another one who was going in and they were a PE teacher, and they were now, I think they were looking at all of the ECAs and the additional provision outside of the core curriculum teaching time. So they'd gone into these, I say junior, they're not really junior, they're really important early leadership roles that are often quite complex. when you go into a senior leadership role, it's often senior in a position you've already held or you've got some experience in. But those first leadership jobs are often quite complicated. And as we talked through kind of how you would plan, what you would do, being really deliberate in the stages of, you know, of leadership, you could see their eyes light up, and they almost were beginning to put that in their own heads into the role that they've taken on, where up until that point, they'd, I think, felt quite a little bit at sea, let's say.
Yeah. I mean, for me, that's where the leadership development record comes in. When they look at that, they can start to see the skills that are required for that post that they may not actually have, or have them well developed. And they can assess themselves and look along them and think, I really need to work on this aspect. And it's okay, because it wouldn't be within that NPQ. If it was just assumed, it wouldn't be there. But it shows to me as well to be a part of the networking element of the NPQ, where you're with another group of those types of leaders, whether you're leading a new department or wanting to, leading behaviour within a school, which is one of the most major elements of a school. And in those areas, to be with a whole select group of other international associates, where you can, as well as let off steam, ask for help, and look for even better practice than your own. And of course, it's always great to share your practice within a group as well, as it makes you, you know, it's very rewarding, makes you feel good.
Do you know the word that I would use there? I would say it's about making deliberate leadership choices. And what we kept saying in our group is, you will do many of these things already, but you'll just do them because you kind of know it's the right thing to do. But if you do things deliberately, then you know you're making a choice. You're choosing why you're doing it like that, because you know what outcome you want, and you know what outcome you're expecting, rather, and you know the benefit of doing it in that way. And I think that's what we kept saying. It's about deliberate leadership and not sort of incidental leadership. And that was quite exciting to see them having those thoughts. You know, it's only been session 1, but it was already really exciting, and I could already see them being more deliberate in their thought about leadership.
Well, of course, that comes straight into the models that we use, isn't it? In terms of, and of course, for us, one of the things that I've been talking to with the specialist NPQ candidates, participants, is that they're learning the language of leadership. And when they're communicating, or they want things from those who are in more senior leadership positions, it's giving them the language which gives them the tools to be able to communicate their ideas really well. I mean, I think that's a real advantage.
Yeah, I think definitely it is. It is about the language, it's the tools, it's the skills, it's the knowledge, it's some tricks and techniques. And it's not just from, you know, it's the nature of how the course works, with the work that they do before they come to the face-to-face day, then the face-to-face day, where the learning there was learning that we had to do together, which was again really exciting. I felt it was like I said, we're early days, but it was all really, really positive.
That's great. Thank you, Abigail.
Yeah. Now, do you want anything more from me, Martin?
No, I think that's great, Abigail. It's great to hook up again.
And I'm happy to answer any questions. Like I said, it's been a fabulous start.
That's great. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Good luck, everyone.
Okay, so moving on, we'll just have a look at in some more detail at the programs and the content within them. So there you can see the 3 specialist NPQs, the LT, the LTD and the LBC, which is leading teaching development and leading behaviour and culture. If we look down the Department for Education framework, we can see that there are some strong elements within each of the courses. And of course, anybody who's a senior role model within your school will need to be an expert in teaching. So as we look down on the left-hand side, you'll see that each one, first of all, visits teaching and teaching as best practice. What is good in the elements of our teaching? Because again, in any of those areas, if we look in terms, if we wish to develop, let's say we want to be a head of department, we need to be able to model our teaching well. If we want to be head of CPD, people are going to be observing our lessons and looking at what we do well. And again, leading behaviour and culture, again, people are going to be seeing in our lessons how we operate with children, how we use the school's culture and its behaviour systems and implement them within the classroom. Now, what's quite interesting in there, you can see that in the LT, you can see that there's 9 elements within them. Now, those are actually chunked down into slightly smaller sections, because you'll see that in the LTD, there are only 4 elements. But trust me, the level of rigour is exactly the same across all 3 of the courses. And of course, all of them meet the content areas, which you can see on the right-hand side, that fit within the framework, which is about the school's culture, teaching, curriculum and assessment, behaviour, special educational needs and disabilities, professional development, organisational management, implementation. And I'll just stop there. Implementation is key for all of the specialist NPQs. It's about how we do things and how we design to do things within schools. So throughout this programme, this will complement the new things that you help to bring into your school on a daily basis. It's a very practical course, and it actually helps you to follow and use analysis. And again, as I would say, is that as you start to, let's say you begin to release a new element within your school of professional development or development of a curriculum, you will have other middle leaders in your area that you can share your successes, and hopefully with a good group you can share your failures, and hopefully you'll see that others have struggled in those areas too. And that brings me down to element 9, which is working in partnership. So that's not just working in partnership with your peers in school, working in partnership now also with a whole international framework of NPQ specialists across the globe. And of course, you'll start to look at governance and accountability. Now, that's an area within the NPQs which grows and grows, right from the specialist NPQs right to the NPQ for executive leadership. And actually, all of those elements from 1 to 10 there appear in every single one of the frameworks. And the language that we use for delivery of the NPQs is the same. And I can't stress this enough. This programme begins to teach you the language that your executive leaders are using in their implementation and development of whole trusts or whole academies or whole groups of international schools. Okay, should we move on? So let's have a look at the structure. And again, one of the interesting things about the structure, if you've got anybody else that's done an NPQ within your school, maybe your senior leaders, they will understand this programme. It's all developed within cycles. So each area is introduced, and it starts with an induction cycle and a needs analysis before you move through to your face-to-face events. And that begins your journey through a cycle. Now, it isn't direct teaching by any means at all. A face-to-face event are the beginnings of a cycle. It's meant to be the inspiration alongside the other colleagues in your group of what your kind of a needs analysis, working with a face-to-face specialist. And our NPQ face-to-face facilitators come from a very broad range of education. They've been always significant leaders within their field. Then after your face-to-face event, in that first cycle begins an online study course. And you'll be quite familiar these days with online study courses. And there's a full range of little areas of learning, study guides, and then specific practice activities that you have to engage in. And they're really broad. So they go from very, very specific to the course to some kind of more broad areas of leadership and development across a school. To summarize that cycle, you'll do a formative assessment task. And that formative assessment task, again, is a choice of often 3 tasks, and it requires a small amount of feedback, around 400 to 700 words, that is actually then used to your group coaching sessions that you'll have with, again, very, very professional mentors that have been in your position and also have been leaders in education. And that actually does bring me to the in-school performance coaching. And that's what we expect. We do expect someone within your own school that is another significant leader within your school to support you along with the programme. And they're able to see your feedback. They're able to encourage you in the areas to development. It really is a collaborative programme. At the end of the course, there is a summative assessment stage. That's a 1,500 word case scenario. That case scenario will be very familiar to you by the time you get to the end of the course. They're not, you won't find them necessarily, I'm not saying that they're not a challenge to do, but they're certainly not difficult to do. And one of the things that I saw some candidates on their final cycle, and they were being prepared for the summative stage, is the facilitator explaining, who is also one of our assessors, that we're looking for you to pass, we're looking for you to develop, and that you'll be very well prepared for that case study window. That's the only area of the course which actually is dictated to us by the DFE in terms of when the window opens. It's an 8-day window, and when the window closes, you must have submitted your task by then. And as you can see there, it's quite a hefty course. It's a total guided learning hours of 82 hours across the subject. So it's something that does require a considerable amount of dedication. It's something that I did myself. I have an NPQ as well, and it's something that allowed me to talk the language of learning with my leaders, and it allowed me to develop on to become an executive head. Okay, next slide.
And it's over to me, Martin. Yep. So the programs, as we've said, are available, all over the world. There's a set price that covers the cost of those programs. For all 3 of the specialists, the fee is £1,250 to undertake. And what I'll go through on the next slide here is in terms of the different funding methods. So we have a whole range of different ways that people pay. So some people self-fund the program, so funded by the candidate themselves, and that can even be paid in one instalment, over 3 installments, or in a 10-month direct debit. It's worth noting that if you self-fund the program, then there is VAT added to the cost of the program, which is 20%. While if your school funds, it comes from an organization, then there's no VAT. So it's definitely something worth considering. If your school do fund it, they may fund it outright. So we'll just pay for the whole thing as part of the CPD budget. Or the school may fund it, but claim back through sort of a salary sacrifice scheme. And if you are paying it for yourself, paying for the program yourself, there is a good way of doing it, because you don't have to pay that 20% VAT. So it's certainly an option to consider if your school are happy to do that. With option 4, what might make them more amenable as well in terms of the salary sacrifice is paying it back to the school over a period of time. So either over 2 years and agree to stay at the school for that member of time, or pay it over 6 months, or come to an agreement of how you might do that. And Martin, when he was a international school leader, very much used this number 4 method to retain staff, but also enable them to be able to access CPD in a more efficient way. I don't know if you just want to say a little bit about that, Martin.
Yeah, so the way I ran it, Jamie, was that £1,250 is expensive for a course, although it's not in real terms because of the development of the individual. And therefore, I needed ways to justify that spend on one individual. So what I did is I would have an arrangement with the teacher, and the school would foot the full cost of the course. But what we'd do is we'd expect that then after the first year, we would deduct a certain amount, not from their salary, we'd actually deduct amount from our CPD budget and place it towards the cost of that course. So if that teacher stayed with me for another year, let's say we'd deduct £600. And then if they stayed with me for a further year, we'd deduct another £600. So in the long term, it did cost the school the £1,250, and it didn't cost the teacher a penny, and it didn't affect their salary. But what I found is that gave me really good teacher retention. And the other thing I'll say, if there's anybody here who's looking to do this course, and there's two things I'd like to say, is that if you want to get CPD out of quite a mean, old, restricted for cash principle like myself, coming with methods of how it can be funded will be well appreciated. You know, let do a bit of a deal if that's possible. I will offer this if you offer that. Setting that aside, even if it's self-funding, it's actually me who put the caption at the bottom there, wasn't it, Jamie? It's astonishingly good value for money. If you are then placed into a position as a head of department, the bottom TLR is worth to you about £3,000 a year. And I don't know another profession where through doing a qualification, you can almost instantly be rewarded, and more or less, I wouldn't say guaranteed. Obviously, you've got to have the skills and that there's got to be the position, but there are many positions for middle leadership. And also, one of the things I'd like to say is that, again, if you were moving on to become like a head of English, it might be another £12,000 per year that you can add on top of your salary. And the last thing I'd say about it is this, is that if you go to the don't move at the moment, but if you go to the very first slide, there's 11,000 people currently on these type of courses within the UK, just within the best practice network. And therefore, the middle leaders of today in the UK have these qualifications. So really, if you're looking at returning to the UK at any point, or moving to some of the more established British international schools, then you will be finding that the colleagues in the leadership positions will have these qualifications, if not now, definitely over the next 12 to 18 months, and certainly going on into the future.
Great, cheers, Martin. So just as a last slide before we come on to some of the questions that have already been put in, and if you have any questions, please do put them into the Q&A chat box. But if you're interested in next steps, the first thing to do is to go onto our website, so outstandingleaders.org or the bestpractice.net website. And on there, you can read through the programs in more detail and start an application direct on there. It's worth noting our application deadline is the 16th of December to commence the program in February. And as part of that process, definitely have a chat with your school CPD lead or the head teacher or whoever's the appropriate person, because as part of the process, we'll need to get their kind of sign off in a short sponsorship form. So have a chat with them, have a think about it, and then go ahead, and apply. And on yesterday's webinar we did for a group of people in the UK, that one of our partners said the best advice was just to go ahead, read about it and get your application in, and sort of get moving forward. But if you have any questions at all that you want to find out more about, we're contactable via email or by phone call, or we also have a new live chat function on our website so people can respond to you in real time. So whichever your preferred method is, we'll be able to respond to you. And without further ado, I think we'll come on to the end of the presentation. Actually, one last slide here, just some feedback that we've had from our recent starters that commenced in October this year. And we really love all the feedback we get, and specifically from Abby's group in the Middle East that have recently started their face-to-face learning. the feedback from there has been exceptional. And thanks again to Abby for running those and coming to the session today, because I think it's really valuable hearing the feedback and putting that in forward to any program development that we make in the future. But on the screen is just some really nice comments that have been made within the last month or so. And on that note, to finish the presentation, we'll come on to the questions, which Tom, could you feed them across or work through them, and me and Martin will do our best to hopefully answer those.
No problem at all. Great presentation, by the way. It's really fascinating to hear Martin and Abigail explore the immediate benefits of the specialist NPQs. Okay, let's go to the questions. So Mohammed says, for enrolling to any of NPQs, is it necessary to have a QTS?
So I saw your question come through, actually, Mohammed, but I wanted to save it to the end because this is a very common question we get. So you don't need UK qualified teacher status, and what you do need is to have a teacher qualification and a teaching role in the country that you're based in. So as long as you're qualified to teach in that country, that's fine. And just one small stipulation is that as part of the application process, you'll need to apply for a UK teacher reference number, which is purely administrative, so that your certificate is awarded by the DfE. But we'll help you with that and give you all the guidance. It's really easy.
Brilliant, thank you, Jamie. I should just note that I'm in the office, so we haven't touched on it, but we do have an exceptional back office support team. So anyone applying for an NPQ will have access to our lovely team who can support you with all aspects of the program. And that accounts for the noise you might be hearing in the background. I'm going to move on to a question from Mohammed Mehdi. What are the requirements of a selected mentor? Good question.
So the in-school performance coach, I assume that will be to do with?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so Martin, you might want to add to it, but from my point of view, sorry, yeah.
Generally the person that you report to frequently. So that because their key role is that they're already doing what you're starting to develop. So that there's somebody that normally that you'd be, to be honest, you'd probably be meeting them either normally on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, but actually that's not the requirement of the course. You actually only need to meet in with them a couple of times throughout the course, actually, in a more formal basis where you share your development record and things like that. But actually, the whole point is it's somebody to kind of chivvy you along the course with, really.
Yeah, that's great.
All right, brilliant. This question is from Samuel De Prisco. As a head of primary PE and sport at my school, I'm interested in culture of a school and how to change behaviours from a PE and sporting perspective across the key stages. Having looked at the breakdown of courses, would NPQLT give me a more holistic leader education? Great question. Martin?
Okay, so again, I go back to that one slide where I mentioned that, to be honest, all of the specialist courses cover all of the elements to a certain degree about leading and developing, and the practice and of what Abby said about the deliberate practice model. They all share that as a common trait. There are focuses on the other areas. So if you really want to go through the curriculum route in a school, let's have a look at the traditional routes. So let's say a very strong curriculum route, you'd stick with the leading teaching NPQ. Whereas actually, if you're really starting to feel that as a leader, you're moving on into that pastoral role, and you'd be maybe looking towards the deputy and pastoral and the head of year roles, then it'd be leading behaviour and culture would be somewhat more relevant. None of them are saying that both of them wouldn't be absolutely applicable to both areas. And you will touch on behaviour in leading teaching. You can't lead teaching without understanding how behaviour works within your classroom and amongst your department, and how you want to set that. And again, leading behaviour with culture, clearly, if the quality of learning, in other words, the way in which people deliver and teach, is not exceptional, children won't behave well, and the culture of the school won't be good. So they really do match each other.
Yeah, absolutely. I would totally agree with that. And just add, I mean, take a look at the website, have a look through the, so on there's the program brochures that are our brochures, but you can also read the DFE learn to and learn how to statements, delve into those and have a really good look, and hopefully it will become apparent which is best for you.
Brilliant, thanks guys. This question is from Mohammed. If I'm teaching outside UK, then what do I mean by teacher reference number for me? Where can I get this? Do you help us with this?
Yes,
Jamie?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's simply something you need to apply for as part of the process, but get your application form in, and then one of our enrolment team will help you apply for the teacher reference number. And I stress it's honestly really easy. It's just you have to send off an email to the DFE and they'll respond to you with a teacher reference number.
Brilliant, thanks. This one's from Carly Sheridan. Will the LTD one help to support new/struggling teachers?
Yes, I think it's there to delve in. It's absolutely about developing and supporting, both new teachers, but also those that may be struggling, and to help support them, to be in a place that you want them to be in. Anything to add, Martin?
Yeah, I mean, really, that's the key to that LTD is that it's about developing colleagues, it's about developing others around you. So, I mean, it's really specifically focused on that. And again, you'd be within a network of others that are helping to train and develop new teachers as well.
Brilliant, thanks guys. I think we've got a few questions in our chat box. Let me have a quick look. Just scroll up. Okay, so Sila, I've already enrolled for the course. Brilliant. Jamie Sadler says, if I have already submitted my application, how many days should I expect a response from BPN? Jamie?
Yeah, so we have our enrolment team. So I would expect for them to come back to you within 48 hours, I would suggest. If you're unsure where your status is, where you're up to, do drop us an email or give us a call, and one of the team will be able to help with that. But we generally turn applications around relatively quickly.
Thanks, Jamie. We've got a question from your namesake, Jamie Sadler. He asks, what roles would you expect to be able to apply for after successfully completing NPQLBC?
Yeah. Shall I answer that?
Go for it.
Okay, yeah. So you'd be moving on maybe into more of kind of group leadership, where you'd be looking at maybe assistant headship in those areas, or where perhaps as an assistant head, you'd have a full broad scope across the school. So rather than leading behaviour and culture within an area, you'd be looking at leading behaviour and culture across the whole school setting, or possibly across a trust as you'd move up into kind of deputy headship or even headship. In fact, any of the NPQs are good for those people who have maybe arrived into very senior roles, maybe the second in school, like kind of that kind of traditional deputy role or assistant head without any formal training, but you've then been designated that you're going to lead behaviour within the school, or you're going to lead CPD in the school. These are great courses for people at that level. And of course, the role that you'd be expecting to go to after doing something like LBC as an assistant head, and maybe even as a deputy head, you'd be looking at doing the senior leadership NPQs, and perhaps even going on to the NPQH, which is for headship.
That's brilliant. I think
great.
that's all of our questions. So a huge thank you to everyone who attended. We've got one more question. I think we've got a thank you from Jamie Sadler. So a huge thank you to everyone who attended. Massive thank you to Martin and Jamie. Abigail had to scoot off, but big thanks to her. We're going to share a recording of this session as well as the slides just as soon as they're available. And in the meantime, please get in touch. Contact us using the email address Jamie's just shared, and get those applications in. Thank you very much, everybody. I'm going to close the session shortly.